Welcome to FOBtv, the future of business. I'm your host, Kevin Benedict. I'm a futurist here at TCS, and I'm excited that each of you have joined us today. My guest is Bob Leonard. Bob, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, Kevin. Happy to be here.
Bob is the managing consultant at Climate Foresight Advisory. He's a book author. We're going to talk about books he's already written, books he's in the process of writing, and all kinds of very interesting things today. So let's just jump right into it. So, Bob, as I'm kind of reviewing with you all the things you're involved in, so Climate Foresight Advisory, climate preparedness, business continuity. Talk to us about those things.
I work with mid-sized companies to determine what can you expect in the way of climate impacts. Depends on the individual company, their locations, their products, their intellectual property, their supply chains, their internal skills and resources. So every story is different, and we use a scenario planning to show how 3 or 4 possible, potential, plausible futures can roll out, and that helps the executives to visualize where they might go, how they might adapt, how they might create climate resilience for their organization so they survive, and also how they can thrive in that there are opportunities. Most companies will have the capabilities to create climate solutions, the capabilities to enjoy opportunities within the transition that we're going through due to climate and other societal issues.
So are you finding some particular vertical industries being more open to this than others, or more engaged in it than others?
Especially the property casualty guys and the reinsurance, they can see the trends of weather for past 30 years getting more severe, the claims getting larger, all of that. So the insurance companies really know. I was the insurance industry product manager at EMC, which is a data storage company that merged with Dell. And so it was very much about duplication, business continuance, disaster recovery, those kinds of things from an IT perspective.
So you've written books in the past, but I understand you're also working on a book right now called Chaos to Clarity. Talk to me about that.
We are in, I think most people will agree, a very turbulent time. Do you know, are you familiar with the term VUCA?
I heard it the other day, but tell for our audience, why don't you tell us what it is again?
Okay, well, it originated with the U.S. Department of Defense. It's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And it is a different way of managing and leading an organization, one that is decision-making is pushed out to the periphery to a large degree.
So you also co-authored a book, Moving to a Finite Earth Economy. Mm-hmm. And the book description included the following sentence: the book outlines what humanity needs to do to successfully address the root cause of our climate emergency. What do you think that root cause might be?
Well, I think there's actually 3. They're interrelated. One is capitalism, our economic system. Capitalism has been great. Capitalism has helped to lift billions out of poverty. Capitalism is a great catalyst for innovation, but it also has the effect of always more. It requires that we always grow. Our only, in the U.S. anyway, and in a lot of places, our only measure of well-being is GDP, how much you produce. A standing forest, which does a lot of good. It provides habitats for animals. It stops soil erosion. It produces the oxygen that we breathe. Under capitalism, it's worthless. If you cut it down, turn it into 2x4s, then it has value. So it's really an incentivization of the wrong things. And as populations have grown and as affluence have grown, we here in the U.S. had the American dream: car, a washing machine, a color TV, all that stuff. So there's an enormity of the amount of minerals that have to be mined, transported, manufactured, transported again to the point of sale, and then use fossil fueled electricity to run these appliances, et cetera. So it's a compounding problem, and it doesn't have to be. We need, again, to change the system. The other piece of that side of that coin is the consumer society. So just systemic issue. The other one that I would say is silos. We tend to think in siloed. Take this piece, this whatever it is, especially in corporations. How can we make this operation as efficient as possible? Well, in doing that, it may have unintended consequences. It often becomes brittle. It often becomes, if it's any little thing goes wrong, it's broken, it has to be fixed.
So organizational leaders, this is a quote that I got from you earlier. Organizational leaders need to understand that ESG, environmental, social, and governance, and reducing carbon footprints are just the first step that needs to happen. Talk to us about the following for that first step.
But what happens after that? You are still vulnerable to climate impacts. You are still vulnerable to severe weather events. You are what you need to manage those risks. Going to have transition risks as we move from a fossil fuel based economy to a zero carbon economy, a circular economy. In my opinion, that's where it'll go. It makes sense. So there's a lot of things that are going to have to change.
So in preparation for our discussion today, Bob, you wrote me in one of your messages, leaders need to manage their climate risk, also to examine the second and third tier risk. It's not just about the fires or the extreme weather events. It's the effects on your supply chain and on your stakeholders. Tell us more about those second and third tier impacts to businesses.
But imagine you've got a warehouse in Northern California, and it's in an area that is vulnerable to wildfire.
Yeah.
So what do you do about that? Well, you harden the warehouse. You clear all the brush away from the buildings, put fire-resistant cladding on the roofs. You make sure that you have internal people like fire brigade with internal access to water or fire retardants, etc. So and you buy insurance. So you've got yourself covered in that way. But here comes the fire. So the fire gets real close, but your assets, your warehouse, your inventory, it's all safe. Well, what about your employees? What about the people that work in the warehouse? Some of them have lost their homes. What are you going to do with them? Do you have a plan to help them? Do you have a plan to manage the work without 10% or 20% of your employees? What about further out, the infrastructure, the electric transmission wires to your warehouse? Have they been burned down? The roads or the railways that bring the inventory into your warehouse and out of your warehouse, are they closed? How are you going to manage around that?
Leonard recently stated the following: in 10 years, if you are not seriously helping to save the planet, no one will do business with you.
Yeah.
Do you agree or disagree, and why?
I definitely agree. And it's not, when you say in 10 years, it sounds like you flip a switch. It's going to be a gradual migration to that over time as more people get it. And from what I've seen so far, some people get it, Most people don't get it until they or somebody close to them is directly impacted. But given the frequency and the severity, it by 10 years' time, the vast majority of people are going to understand we're all in the same boat. We're all in spaceship Earth. There's no resupply ship coming. Elon Musk is not going to save you and take you to Mars. We've got to solve this problem ourselves, and we can, but we need to collaborate instead of compete.
So how do you see businesses changing when you're talking to them? How are they changing to address climate change, incrementally even? How are you seeing them? Are they all trying to do it? Is there just a small percentage that are trying to do it? From your vantage point, what are you seeing?
I see that, yes, they are. More and more, a lot are not. Often the companies I work with are family owned. And in those situations, you'll have the older generation, you'll have the younger generation. The older generation wants to pass on a successful, viable company to their children. And the younger people are more open to these issues. So it's usually the son or the daughter that will initially contact me. But there's certainly, it's a sea change that's reflected in a lot of it. And it's not just climate driving this. There's a sea change happening in society. Why am I doing this? I'm spending a third of my life, almost a half of my life, doing something I really don't want to be doing. So what else can I do? And now we have the technology that enables a lot of that.
Well, Bob, thank you so much for sharing your insight with us.
Thank you.